Hello and welcome to Utilities as it pertains to Application Express. My name is Steve Hamilton and I will be your instructor for this course. Please remember that if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to use the question and comment box found below. Okay, let's get started. In this module, we will learn about the utilities available within Apex. For the bulk of this course, we have talked about the Application Builder component and the SQL Workshop component. Now here we're going to take a look at the Utilities component. The Utilities component, as it pertains to Application Express, allows us to export and import data from another source, allows us to generate DDL or reverse engineer our system, as well as to view the objects that are available within Oracle's Application Express. And finally, we can monitor the overall database activity. And these are all things that are available for the regular developer. So the developer can come in, and if they're developing an application, they can do any one of these. This is not necessarily an administrative function. Apex is made up of three major components. The first component is the application builder. It's exactly that. It builds the application. It builds the forms, and it builds the reports, and it's all built off of pages. Then we have the SQL Workshop. The SQL Workshop is the utility that allows us to create ad hoc reports. We can use SQL commands, we can use SQL query, and we can use the query builder. The SQL Workshop is the component that we really want to navigate the developers to. Right now our developers are probably working in SQL+. What we want to do is navigate them to SQL Workshop, which effectively is a drag and drop capability, and they can create queries a lot simpler than they really can within SQL+. And then the last one is the utilities. And that's the area that we're going to look at in this chapter, or this course, where we're going to maintain the environment. And the developer is responsible for maintaining the environment. So they can export and import the data, they can generate the DDL, they can monitor the overall database activity. So all three of these components is the definition of Apex. So when we talk about Apex, we're going to look at all three major components: application building, SQL Workshop, as well as the utilities. What happens is that when you log into Application Express, and you're going to log in as a developer, so when you log in, you go to the local host and port 8080/Apex, and then it's going to prompt you for your workspace, your username and password. And assuming that those are developer usernames and passwords, and you're not an administrator, this is the screen that you're going to get: the Application Builder, the SQL Workshop, and then the utilities. And we're going to take a close look at the utilities. When I drill down into the utilities, I can see that I have 8 different options. I can unload and I can load data. I can generate DDL for objects that reside within my application. I can look at specific object reports, like objects that reside within this application. The recycle bin, back in version 10 of the database, Oracle introduced the recycle bin. What the recycle bin is if I drop an object, as opposed to that object actually being dropped, it's originally placed in the recycle bin. And if I want to retrieve it from the recycle bin, I just go to the recycle bin and pull it out. So this is telling me all of the objects that reside in the recycle bin, and if for some reason I want to get them back, I can easily retrieve them. I can monitor the overall database, the database activity, the database utilization. I can look at my Apex views, and then I can do schema comparisons. So I can compare my schema against other developer schemas. The About database, that's just telling me the environment that's Apex is installed to. It's going to say, okay, Apex is installed to 11G R2 database. That's all it does. Now, let's go take a look at the load and unload data. So if I want to bring data in from another application, obviously I'm going to go into the load component. If I want to extract data or export data, I'm going to go to the unload option. And if I want to get information about the metadata for the repository, like all the tables and views that make up the Oracle Application Express development product, I would look at the repository. If I go into Generate DDL, this is really kind of a cool thing. The Generate DDL, this is telling me it's going to generate the DDL for all components within my schema. In this particular case, my schema is SHStudent. SHStudent is the account that owns the application. The reason you do this is because if you're in a development environment and you are developing against a series of tables and you want to pick this up and move it into a production environment, you would come in here and generate the DDL. DDL stands for Data Definition Language. That is the syntax or the structure for all of your objects, your tables and your views and your packages and triggers. So we could generate the script for all of these components that are owned by the schema sh student. I can take that script and then I can pick it up and I can move it into my production environment. Remember in last chapter we talked about database dependencies. We can do this. So once we identify the database dependencies, we can come into here and generate the DDL that will generate the entire scripts that will create those objects in your production environment. So that's why we would come in to generate DDL, because we're going to create the script so we can recreate these objects in a completely different environment. So all we're doing is we're going to identify the schema. The next thing we can do is we can identify the object types. Now, we can generate the DDL for all objects that are owned by this schema, or we can generate the DDL for just a handful of objects that are owned by this schema. So maybe we just want to generate the DDL for the tables. We can do that. Maybe we just want to generate the DDL for the triggers. We can do that. We have options, or do we want to save this information into a script, or do we want to just display this to the screen? Typically, if you're going to generate DDL, you're going to save it to a script file. In this particular case, we had an error because we didn't specify the object type. So all we did is went in and said, okay, these are the object types that we want to generate the DDL for. If we are creating a DDL for a specific object type, like a table, we can cherry pick which table names that we want to create that generate the DDL for. So let's say I have access to 5 tables and I want to generate the objects for a table, but I only want to generate the DDL for 3 of those 5 tables. Under the object name, this is going to determine the specific object names for that object type. In our particular case, we chose all objects, so we didn't have to specify an individual object name. But if you choose an object type, an individual object type, then you can determine what objects that you want to generate that DDL for. Then at the end of the day, we're just going to say this is the script that we've created. So let's go ahead and say script. This is the name of the script. The script name is called Gogo. Go ahead and create the script. It has created a little script file. And if we go under the SQL workshop, we can look at the SQL scripts, and we can see the SQL script that we've created, which is called Gogo. We can then import or pull in that script into the SQL workshop or the SQL command line utility, and then we can see the specific results that were generated from that script. And that's exactly what we've done. We've gone into the script editor and we've pulled up the overall definition of this script, and we can see we've got the create table for demo customers, create table for demo images. The advantage of this is we can pick up this script, take it over to a different environment, deploy it, and then in our production environment we know that we have all of the tables and all of the objects that are required for this application. So once we've done that, we can go back to our utilities screen, and again we can select from utilities and look at other utilities that we can use within Oracle Application Express. We've already done generate DDL, other objects. We can look at object reports, the recycle bin, database monitor, Apex views, schema comparison, as well as about the database. So what I've done here is I've gone into object reports. At this stage of the game, under utilities, I want to get reports on all of the objects that are within this particular application. I can get reports on table objects, I can get reports on security, I can get reports on exception objects, as well as PL SQL objects within this particular application. I can get other information on all object reports like invalid indexes, invalid procedures, invalid triggers. Typically what you're going after would be something like table reports or security reports. The other thing I can do is, like under utilities, I can go into the recycle bin. To navigate within the recycle bin, I will have 2 options. Those 2 options would be the dropped objects. So these are the objects that are removed from my application. Now the advantage of this is I can come over and say, oh my gosh, I dropped that object, I need to get it back. So I go under dropped objects, I select that object, and I tell it to roll back that object. So if I dropped an object like demo customers or whatever it was, I can immediately retrieve that object from the recycle bin and have it placed back into my application. Or if I want to totally clean out the recycle bin, I would say purge recycle bin. Now please understand, once I purge the recycle bin, there is no going back. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. Once you say purge recycle bin, those objects are gone and cannot be retrieved. So when we drop an object, it's automatically placed in the recycle bin, and we can retrieve it from the recycle bin. But once we purge the recycle bin, we are totally out of luck. Now if I look at the overall database monitor, I can get system statistics, I can look at overall database utilization, I can look at the sessions, I can look at the top running SQL statements within this application, I can look at my long running application, as well as overall system statistics. For example, system statistics would be the amount of memory I'm utilizing, what is my memory hit ratio, those type of things. What is my I/O hit ratio? Now if I do that, I have to log in as a DBA. This is the Database Administration login. It's going to prompt me for a username and password. Now this has to map back to a DBA privilege at the database. So if I enter in SH student, and SH student does not have database administrator privileges on my system, I'm not going to be able to access anything. So typically when you log in here, you have to log in as a DBA. Then if we go back to Utilities, under Application Express Views, we can look at all of the views, and this is the metadata. This is the views that basically make up Application Express. And we can see here we have a total of 15 of them. Actually, yeah, there's a total of 15 views. So we can look at the details of the metadata within Oracle Application Express. These tables are accessible from SQL Plus as well. I mean, if you logged into the appropriate account within the database that has Apex, you can query these tables and get the exact same information. Here it just provides us a little nicer look and feel and gives